All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. Allahumma ya muqallib al-qulub thabbit qulubana ala ta'atik. يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك اللهم ثبتنا عند الموت بلا إله إلا الله آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Thanks for joining up again. And I am trying to, here we go, trying to get the screen shared. Thank you for joining. And I know daylight savings just passed, but it's good to be here with you all. And we can go ahead and get right into it. So last week we had gone over different aspects, right? We had gone over specifically in relation to who Allama Iqbal was speaking about, right? And he was talking about the perspectives of the Muslims and how the Muslims had fought, obviously, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The believers had gone out of their way to make sure that the word of Allah was something that was propagated on the earth. And we even went over this little map and we went over how he wants to show what a global Muslim community looks like. He wants to talk about what the Muslims currently are going through and how they themselves are brought into a place where now their entire living standard has been thrown out, right? Their entire way of being is something that it was questioned and just kind of done away with. Now, today, we're going to see something else. We're going to see a different aspect. We're going to see the Muslims talking about, Ya Allah, who did we do this for, right? Who did we do this for? For what was the reason that we were engaging all of these people? What was the strength of the believers to continue to do what they were doing? And it's really interesting to be reading these lines of poetry specifically today because of the fact that we're living in a very interesting time period. And that time period is that in the next 2 days, the entire place of our existence within the United States may be changed based on who becomes president, right? Like that's what it comes down to. That's one thing. And on the other end, we're also dealing with a global phenomenon of Muslims just being completely thrown under the bus, where you have in a place like France, where quite literally, you know, you're even taking a step back. I heard a really good khutbah this weekend on Friday. And this is the truth of it, wherein if somebody commits an act of, or says something against Black people, for example, or you say something against people of color, it is deemed racist. But then at the same time, when people may speak out against an act that happens against the LGBTQ community, that's called homophobia. But then the moment someone speaks out and says something blasphemous against Muslims, it's called freedom of speech, right? It's not called Islamophobia, or it's not spoken about in a way where people just completely don't think about Muslims as humans at a global level. So I just found it interesting to be reading this during this time period today, but inshallah we can get into it. Dr. Saab, assalamu alaikum, I see you're with us.
Wa alaikum assalam. I am on another call, but I thought I see what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
But khair, I mean, if you can see the lines, feel free to read them. If not, I can, if you're on your phone or stuff, then it's
I can read it if you want me to.
Sure. Can you see it?
I can see the 4 lines only. हम जो जीते थे तो
Yeah.
जंगल की मुसीबत के लिए और मरते थे तेरे नाम की अजमत के लिए. He is addressing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
थी ना कुछ तेग जनी अपनी हुकूमत के लिए, सर बकफ फिरते थे क्या दहर में दौलत के लिए. तो थी ना कुछ तेग जनी अपनी हुकूमत के लिए, सर बकफ फिरते थे क्या दहर में दौलत के लिए. कौम अपनी जो जरो माल जहां पर मरती, बुत फिरोशी के एवज बुत शिकनी क्यों करती. Beautiful.
Yeah. You know, I was gonna say something. Sar bakaf, right? Sar is head and bakaf is your hands here like this, right?
Cuff is your sleeve actually.
Your sleeve.
Not the hand. It's
No, okay.
you have the buttons. That's kaf.
Okay.
Yeah. In other words,
So
you're holding it.
in Arabic, hand is kaf.
That's good. Sar ba kaf
Yeah.
haath bhi chahiye phir. The way we use it at the edge of the hand. In other words, we are holding it there. Yes.
Yeah. So it's really interesting here.
दहर दुनिया को कहते हैं, तेग जनी तलवार के चलाने को कहते हैं, और क्या था दहर में दौलत के लिए. हाँ, बस बाकी तो कोई मुश्किल लफ्ज इसमें नहीं है.
Yeah, yeah. Teghani was the sword, right? Or the hit sword.
Yeah, that was the traditional way of warfare at the time. So that was used metaphorically for a struggle.
Yeah. So, but yeah, if there's anything else you'd like to add, feel free to do so before we get into it.
If you basically हम तो जीते थे तो जंगों की मुसीबत के लिए से मुराद यही है कि since we were to declare your oneness, so we were subjected to difficulty, and we were just basically surviving and carrying on that warfare, defending ourselves. That was our entire life purpose at the time. So for that particular moment when the Islam was very few people, and then it was spreading across Europe and Asia, that particular statement fits perfectly. और मरते थे तेरे नाम की अजमत के लिए. अल्लाह अकबर कह के हम अपनी जान देने के लिए तैयार रहते थे. नाम की अजमत is glorifying your name, greatness of your name. We were not really taking a warfare for our own governance or for our own sovereignty or acquiring more land to govern, but were we asking, he's asking the question, were we going around with our heads in our hands to acquire more wealth? No, we were just doing it for you.
And I think this also goes back to what we spoke about last week when, the map and everything, is that a lot of these, like, for example, the Seljuks and the Turanis, or Chin mein, or Iran mein Sasani, all of this was in reference to empire building. All these people were doing it for themselves. Yunani bhi the, Nasrani bhi the, or Yahudi bhi the. It was just that it was about empire building, right?
Exactly.
But it's saying that this wasn't for ourselves. So he's expounding upon it, saying that this wasn't just for us. This wasn't just to create a new Muslim human empire so we could grow, but we did all of this for you.
Yes, he says that the final two lines explains is kaum apni jo zaro maal hai jahan par marti but forosh ke evad but shikani kyun karti. Why would we break down the idols? We could have sold them and made money. We were not doing anything for money, so we were not even caring about money. That's what he's saying. But forosh is one who sells the idols, and but shikan is the one who breaks them down.
Right. But yeah, हम जो जीते थे जंगों की मुसीबत के लिए और मरते थे तेरे नाम की अज़मत के लिए. So the main thing that we're looking at here is that Iqbal is speaking to God and saying that we were the ones that fought in these wars, right? We were the ones that went out and fought. Who did we do this for? We did this for God. हम जो जीते थे तो जंगों की मुसीबत की. We did it. We went into war for the sake. Like, no one goes into war for the sake of just going into war, right?
Right.
और मरते थे तेरे नाम की अज़मत के लिए, and we didn't die for ourselves. We didn't die to do anything except do it for your sake, right? For तेरी नाम की अज़मत. So
glorifying is to declare your greatness. Azmat is elevation.
Yeah, the glory of God's name, right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
So those are the two things that are being brought up here, that for those of you that aren't Urdu speakers. So the main point is that the idea of fighting for God is done, right? Is brought into place, fighting for God. And then you have here dying for God. Right? So we were the ones to fight for you. We were the ones to die for you. So that's what he's originally saying. Then he goes on and says, "Thi na kuch tegh zani apni hukumat ke liye." So we didn't strike swords, right, for our own hukumat, for our own government. Right, and the striking of the sword is in reference to going into battle, is to going towards that. So we see that aspect as well. Who did we fight for? Right, that's the question that's being brought up. We fought for you.
Yeah.
Right. And then, as I mentioned before, keep this in mind for those of you that are listening. Last week we had gone over that there were all these different groups, right? I had mentioned the Seljuks were there, right? Then we had the Turanis, and then we had the Sassanids, we had the Chinese, we had the Yunanis, the Greeks, we had the Jews, we have the Christians mentioned here. So all these groups are mentioned who may have, according to Iqbal, or historically were fighting to basically put up an empire. But then here, Iqbal is talking about how the Muslims did not do it for an empire. They didn't do it for their own dynasty, but they were doing it for what reason? To elevate God's name.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's it. Yeah, when you compare it with the other nations and their history before, then the point becomes very clear.
Yeah. Sarbaka phirte the kya dahar mein daulat ke liye, right? So yes.
Yeah. Were we traveling around the world for the money? That's the question he's asking.
Yeah. Were we traveling around the world for money? Were we just going?
Yeah. Do you think we were traveling in the world for money? That's what he's saying. With our hands on, with our head on our hands, ready to die.
Yeah. Literally. And the question we just got, yeah, we're still on the Shikwa actually. So we're on the 7th stanza. So for those of you that were asking, yes, we're still on Shikwa. We have a while to go. We have
Nihal,
a while to go for Shikwa. Yes.
Nihal, I will have to go the other side there. Now my turn is coming up.
Sure.
But I'll see if I can join again. Okay.
Yeah, inshallah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but yes, we're still on the Shikwa for those of you that were asking. So the Shikwa is going to go on. I really highly recommend. I don't know how we can do it, but I would definitely recommend getting Dr. Abdurrahman's book. It's a very good follow-along guide. If I were to ever teach this course again, inshallah, I hope to, I would definitely use this as a guide because it's very helpful. But yes, we're still on it right now. But then afterwards, as we were saying, Sarbakaf, right? Sar in Urdu and in, I don't know if it's in Farsi, but I know it's in Urdu, right? Is head, right? And then kaf in Persian and Urdu is referring to sleeve, but kaf in Arabic also refers to your hand in Arabic. So sarba kaf, for those who can see the video, it's literally like putting your hands on your head like this, right? You've submitted, you've kind of given yourself. So Sarbakaf phirte the kya dahar mein daulat ke liye, like did we do that? Were we putting our lives on the line? Were we just wandering the world, right? Were we just going around just not caring to gain wealth? Again, keep this in the context of empire building. Keep this in the context of bringing it together in that sense. All these people were building empires, and what? And when they're building those empires, they're caring for themselves. They don't care for God, right? And if you even think about this, you know, when people demonize Muslims and they're like, oh, in your, you know, if there was a Muslim state, right, like a proper Muslim state, then look, all these people would be treated as second-class citizens. All of this would happen. All that would happen. But then you look at right now the world as it is, right? And instead of understanding that actually as within our faith, we know, what does the Quran teach us when it comes to other people's faiths? The Quran teaches us that we don't insult other people's faiths. We don't go out of our way to make other people feel bad. Yet there is a propagated effort to say that, you know, if you speak out against, again, the LGBTQ community, it's called homophobia. When you speak out against a certain ethnic group, it's called racism. But when you speak out and claim that you're utilizing free speech against Muslims, it's called free speech. It's not called Islamophobia. But regardless of the fact, we see here that the Muslims that are being spoken about, it was a duty on them to make sure that anyone that did not follow their faith, or anyone that was not a Muslim, was protected, was taken care of, was respected, their dignity honored. You know, and now we see here that Allama Sahab is talking about who these people were that did that, saying we were those people. Right? Specifically here, that قوم अपनी जो ज़र माल जहां पर मरती बुत फरोशी. We're actually going to get into this part. This is actually really important. But faroshi is a term that is used here specifically about selling idols, and then versus but shakti is Butt Faroshi is selling idols, and then Butt Shakni is about selling or destroying idols rather. So destruction is paralleled here with what? With selling. And we're gonna see this in a holistic light in a moment. So if our community was to the qawm, the people, agar hamari qawm, if we were striving just towards wealth, if we were striving to just get loot of the world, why would we be shattering idols instead of selling them, right? That's what he's saying. He's posing a question, right? He's saying here that if it was all about gaining wealth, if it was all about getting wealth, then wouldn't it have made more sense for us to sell the idols instead of break them, right? We see that brought into a holistic light. So when we see this, we're going to see the next part of this actually grow as well and see where things go from there. Zija, are you still with us? If you are, I'd love if you could read for us. Nope. Okay.
I would like to add one thing regarding that Butt Faroshi and Butt Shikni. It could refer to that Mahmud Ghaznavi, who was referred as Butt Chicken, not as Butt Farosh, because he was offered a lot of wealth, and he said, "No, I want to be a Butt Chicken rather than a Butt Farosh."
Oh, so did Allama Iqbal actually write this in reference to him, or?
It could be used because he is the one in the history he is referred as Butt Chicken, then Butt Farosh, Mahmud Ghaznavi.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
Would you like to read the next lines? If it's up.
चल न सकते थे अगर जंग में अड़ जाते थे. And I cannot see the other lines actually.
Is it there? Can you hear me, Sister Simon? You're on mute.
Yes, sorry. पांव शेरों के मैदान में उखड़ जाते थे. तुझसे सरकश हवा तुझसे सरकश हवा हुआ कोई तो बिगड़ जाते थे. तेग क्या चीज है हम तोप से लड़ जाते थे. नक्श तौहीद का हर दिल पे बिठाया हमने. ज़ेरे खंजर भी ये पैगाम सुनाया हमने.
Nice. So the first part is टल ना सकते थे अगर जंग में अड़ जाते थे. So basically, if we had decided that we're going to go to war, if we had decided, right, that we are going to fight, अड़ जाते थे, right? What would basically happen is that when arjana means to become resolute, right? To become resolute. That's the main point that's being brought up. Right. टल ना सकते थे अगर जंग में अड़ जाते थे. So if we decided that we're going to go to war, if we decided that we are going to establish ourselves on the earth, then no one could stop us, right? No one could go out of their way and harm us. And then this part is really interesting. पाँव शेरों के भी मैदान में उखड़ जाते थे. That on the battlefield, even, and he's saying that the feet, right? पाँव or feet, शेरों are lions, right? के भी मैदान से उखड़ जाते थे. Even the feet of lions would remove themselves from the battlefield. They would become scared. They couldn't keep their ukarjanas to not be firm, right? So they would lose a sense of firmness. And he's not talking about literal lions, right? Lions on the battlefield are an allegory for what? For the brave-hearted, right? For those who are able to fight. So they're saying that when the Muslims had decided that we are going to basically attack, we are going to establish justice on the world, then even the feet of lions would not be afraid, right? Even the feet of lions in that sense would not be afraid. तुझसे सरकश हुआ कोई तो बिगड़ जाते थे. So if somebody was disobedient, right? Sarkash ho jana is to be disobedient. To bigad jate the. So those people would do what? They would basically, if they rebelled, it would destroy them. They wouldn't be able to push back against us. Dekh kya cheez hai? Right? What is a sword? It's literally the question he's asking. What's a sword? Right? Top se lad jate the. Top is a cannon. It's a cannon. He's saying that at this point, people would get into a fight with a sword. You want to talk about just going to a fight with a sword? Well, we used to fight with cannons. Right? It actually reminded me of that saying we have in English, is that you showed up to a gunfight with a sword. Right? So he's going to say, okay, or with a knife. So fine, you have a sense of strength, you have a sense of understanding that these people are showing up, and you're saying that a knife fight is not a big deal for us. We can fight with cannons, we can fight with guns, we will do that. We will go out of our way to establish ourselves in that sense. So if you try to bring it up any other way, then we will establish ourselves there. We'd fight with them. Naqsh Tawheed ka har dil ye bithaya humne. Zere khanjar bhi ye paigam sunaya humne. Tawheed ka naqsh. Remember, we spoke about Tawheed, we spoke about the oneness of Allah. So, naqsh Tawheed ka har dil ye bithaya humne. The aspect of making people say La ilaha illallah, the aspect of making people understand what the oneness of God was. So we know what? That it was us, we did it, right? And again, we had spoken about this previously in other lines, where Allama Sahib is talking about himself and how he was able to go up to the people and say to them, "Kyun main ziyakar banu?" Right? Sood faramosh rahun. Like, why am I going to be the loser? I did my job. Shart insaf. We spoke about that justice has conditions. But now here, we're being shown that Naqsh Tawheed ka had dil ye bithaya humne. We were the ones that put the love of God in people's hearts. We were the ones that established La ilaha illallah. Zere khanjar bhi ye paigam sunaya humne. What is he referring to there? Zere khanjar. Well, the blade of a sword is a khanjar is a sword, and zair is the blade, right? The blade of the sword is what we used to convey to people, is to make them understand, is to bring them to fruition. Zair khanjar bhi ye paigam sunaya humne. That we utilize the sword, we utilize it to come to you. We utilized it to establish your message. Right? Paigam sunaya humne. We sent them a message with these swords. We sent them an understanding, even while they were laying down. So in essence, this whole scenario, again, it's still ongoing from here, right?
No, Nihal,
it's still ongoing from here.
Nihal?
Yes.
So here, I think what, when you read this is Naqsh Tawheed ka har dil, it's not ye, it's pe. Naqsh Tawheed har dil pe bithaya humne aur zere khanjar bhi paigam sunaya humne. So it means that Naqsh kahi ke sar pe bithaya humne aur zere khanjar, even when we were under the swords, when we were in, under those difficulties, we still continue to spread your message.
Yeah.
I think just a little clarification that I think is important.
So you're saying this is actually a ye?
No, pay.
Okay. Oh, was I saying ye? Okay.
That is pay.
It's not pay. It's pay.
Pay.
Dil pay on your heart.
Yeah. Got it. So yeah, even in those, could you say that again? Actually, you said that very nicely. Could you say that again?
No, what I said is that Naqsh Tawheed har dil pe bithaya humne. So we put that naqsh on the heart, and even when we were under the swords or when we were under oppression, we still continue to spread your message.
Ah, interesting. Interesting. Yes, while lying under even, yes, we put the mark of Tawheed in people's hearts, right?
Even when we were in, you know, those difficult situations where we were under the swords, you know.
Yeah. Yes, okay. Zere Khanjar hi ye paigam sunaya humne. Yes, even yes, when we were, jab hum zere khanjar mein the,
जी.
जब हमारी गर्दन तलवार के नीचे थी, हमने फिर भी नक्श तौहीद को का पैगाम सुनाया हमने. That works. But it even shows you what was our might, because that's the rhetorical question that we had posed. Like, what have we been able to do? What have we been able to prove? Zere Khanjar bhi, even in that situation, under the state of oppression. I actually wanted to open it up and see if anyone had anything to add, whether from last week or from this week. Or अगर किसी को थोड़ा बहुत गुफ्तगू करनी है ये lines के ऊपर, then I wanted to open it up. I know some of you were here last week, some of you weren't, but last week was really good because we had taken a map, and basically in these green areas you can see where all the Muslims were, and we had kind of highlighted it through different parts of the Muslim world, right? We'd gone over where the Muslims had basically gone around and whatnot, but I'd like to open it up to see who, if anyone has anything to add, inshallah, whether it's on the lines from today, or agar kisi aur ko kuch sunana hai, then you're most welcome, inshallah, at this point.
Yeah.
I would like to say that, like last week, I was just like heard the part of it. But the thing is that these bands or these verses are all about our glorious history, our past, what we used to do, what we used to be. And then, of course, like once we came under all that scrutiny, then we just like preferred, you know, all that worldly things upon all those like, you know, in the way of Allah. So I'm like, in the past, we used to just like think about Allah. That, okay, we are doing it for the sake of Allah. We were doing it for you. So this is the shikwa also, and a message that what we used to do for, it's just like food for thought kind of a thing, that was the one of the key of our success. That whatever we do is not for the worldly things, we did it for Allah, for the sake of Him, not for anything else. So that's the message, that's the thing what I get from all these verses. That's the main success key for all the Muslims were. That I'm like, if you read the history, you look at the history, only those, you know, rulers were successful who just fought for Allah, for His that supremacy, but nothing else.
Yeah, and I think, and it's really interesting because a lot of people, that's what the main message of the Quran is that do not become destructed by the dunya, do not become overtaken by the dunya. The aspect is not that no one should own a nice house, or that someone should not have a nice car, that someone should not wear nice clothes. Actually, it's a very famous hadith of Prophet ﷺ, where a man had asked that, Ya Rasulullah, like, I like to wear nice clothes, right? And I like to wear nice shoes. Is that kibar? Is that arrogance? And he says, that's not arrogance. He said, it's arrogance when you look down on people, right? And when you look down on people because someone does not, God forbid, have the most up-to-date BMW in their driveway, right? God forbid they don't have the most up-to-date iPhone, right? God forbid they're you know, they don't have something as recent as you do. And you all know this, right? Like you live in New Jersey, right? And you know, you see the economic disparity that's there. But the moment we begin to compare and contrast, the moment we begin to say that uske paas ye hai, mere paas nahi hai, like these people have this thing and I don't have this thing, or these people don't have this thing, I should have this thing. The amount of show off that occurs on the occasion of, well, luckily with COVID, thank God, I think small weddings are now like the way to go. So no one's going to be throwing big, expensive weddings in which people are literally going into debt. Like literally, I know of people who that can't live within their means, where you're going to utilize the dunya to go and get other people. So if you have a love of dunya, if you have a love of the world where you don't want to leave your home, you don't want to leave your car, you don't want to become uncomfortable, then you're recognizing that the fact that Islam is able to spread happened because these people had let go of these things, right? It's not about, again, getting lost in the fact that you don't have anything. It's good to have things, but the moment we go out of our way in which we are falling into debt, or where our intentions are changing and we're showing off, and that becomes the reason that we are engaging with the world, then, Jawab al-Shikwa eventually is going to get into what? Like Allama Iqbal is saying these things to God, and God will respond, well, look, it's kind of like, listen, sweetie, you did what you had to do, but you didn't do it the way you're supposed to do it. So that's why you're in the state that you're in. So we're going to see that eventually, is that it's not about the fact that we did everything we were supposed to. Did we fight with the right intention? There was something that came to mind, actually. There's something that come to mind. Hum jo jeete the, to jangon ki musibat ke liye, right? Aur marte the tere naam ki azmat ke liye. Do you guys know of the first person to enter hellfire? One of the first people to enter hellfire is actually a martyr, somebody who died in God's path. He fought to show off, and Allah will bring him on the day of judgment and say, what did you do for me? And he'll say that I fought for you and I died for you. And Allah will say, you lied, and then drag that person on their face and throw them into the hellfire. That's what was actually coming to my mind, right? Because if you already read Jawab al-Shikwa, right, and you read Shikwa, you haven't just read Shikwa, then you kind of see those images coming to play. So you may have fought, but you did it so that people would know who you are. You did it so that you'd have a name for yourself. So it's just interesting seeing all these concepts intermingling. Does somebody have a question or a comment?
I was going to share, just also brought to mind about our personal jihad. It's like we're fighting, and we're also internally fighting always. To do just what you just said, to not be distracted by this earth and the worldly things, like so I think that was sort of woven in a subtle way, maybe.
No, definitely. I think that's exactly what he's saying, right? Because I think right now, from a rhetorical point of view, Iqbal may be speaking and people are like, yeah, we did that, yeah, we did that, yeah, we did this, but then eventually when the response comes out, it goes, actually, you didn't do it the right way. Right? You didn't sit there and establish Islam, and later we'll get into this, right? You Sayyid bhi ho, Mirza bhi ho, Afghan bhi ho, you sabhi kuch ho batao, Musalman bhi ho, right? Remember that people will say that, oh, we're Sayyids, we're related to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? You know what I'm talking about? Your Saturday evening tea time at your friend's house, and they have that one friend come over who's their acquaintance, or your acquaintance and their friend, right? And they're all just talking about who their family was and how their family came from Turkey, or how their family came from the Arab world, or how their family came from this place or that place. And if you remember and that's actually a line in Jawab al-Shikwa, right? In Jawab al-Shikwa, he's basically being responded to by God. And God is saying that you guys chose your ethnicities and your nationalities, but you're all of those things, but are you even Muslims really? So you've gone away from what the right path was. You've gone away from what the right place to be was. And it reminded me of the verse of the Quran, actually, in Surah Al-Imran. I'll actually share this with you all because I think it's very pertinent to the discussion.
Nihal, I think we are, moving away from where we are. So I think we'll come to Jawab Shikwa when we come to that. But right now, just focusing on what we are, reading today, I think we should remember that this is a case building for the Shikwa.
Yeah.
So here, I think Iqbal is trying to say that, we took this musibat, we fought for you with swords and cannons, and we, under most adverse conditions, we spread your word, we were loyal to you. So he's really building this case in these ashar. So he's, before he makes the Shikwa, he's, just making a very strong case for his Shikwa.
Yeah.
Is, I think, what all this is about, what we are talking about right now. And I just thought that, a lot of things that you said really are from Jawab al-Shikwa, which inshallah will come to,
Yeah, that's true. So you're saying that that I should only give a trailer and not the full movie?
Yeah, I think that we'll come to it. It will really mean a lot more if we talk about those things when we come to that. So right now, let's stay on the shikwa side and see what he's trying to say, you know, in these words here, in these few ashar that he said, and in the most beautiful way that he's building his case, you know.
Yeah. But nonetheless, for those of you that have been with us, and for anyone who has read Jawab Shikwa, that's exactly what was just said, right? It's like we're building a case, right? Iqbal is the lawyer on behalf of the people, on behalf of the Muslims, and he's building this case up that we've done this and we've done that, and we've thought we've put in our work, right? We've punched in and punched out, but then what's going to happen from this point on is going to be the discussion. But as anyone else, if there's anything to add, I guess we could have done another set of lines, but if there's anything else to add, there was something actually that was on my mind, because it's funny you were mentioning that, because in the Quran, you actually have this culture of promises, right? Allah has promised the believers, right? Allah has promised the Muslims. وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ. Right, that Allah has promised them. So I guess keeping this in mind as to what the psychology of it is that what has been promised herein? Well, Jannah has been promised. وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّ مِنْكُمْ. Right? That Allah has promised to believe in Surah An-Nur, that they will be established in the earth. They will be established in the earth if they have belief and they do good actions. So the question comes in, why is it that we're in the state that we're in? Why is it that the president of France can say that we are basically in some sort of clash of civilizations with the Muslims? Why is it that people don't have more respect for our community? Why is it that when it comes to politicians have to scramble to get the vote of other communities, but we give it freely without any conditions? Right, and all of that I think is going to be seen in that case, is that we are going to build this case, continue to understand it, and see where things go from there, inshallah. Does anyone else have anything to add? If not, I can let you all go a little bit early, but if there's something to add within the discussion, I'd definitely love to hear it. Okay, inshallah, we can go out a little bit early, if that's okay with you all. But I appreciate you all coming. Inshallah, next week, join us. We're going to do more. I think now we've caught up. So I'm going to, inshallah, do 3 stanzas every week instead of 2, because I think it seems like we've covered the majority of the of what actually is going to be spoken about. So then we'll just continue to do more and more, and hopefully we'll get into the Jawab al-Shikwa. I hope to, I don't know how this looks like, but I'd love to get into Majlis Iblis. Right, Majlis Iblis is a very good read as well. But inshallah, does anyone have anything else to add? If not, then inshallah we will call it a day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair.
سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.